Hello, guys. Thank you for tuning in again. My name is Anthony, and I do take this opportunity to welcome all of you who have spared some time today to join me just to partake of what I have to say concerning our country, Kenya. So, today I want to talk about peace, and I want to talk about peace in the context of what is happening in the country. I've been listening to what our leaders are saying. And for the longest time, all I hear is, we want peace. Peace, peace, peace. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, following the wave of the Gen Zs who had protests last year, June, in 2024 and 2025, and there was a high number of deaths in this country, and there has been an increased rate of police brutality within our country. So the number of deaths by live bullets, the number of abductions by people who post content online expressing how they feel. So the number of abductions, then you're taken to court with false charges or falsified charges or trumped up charges. And basically what you're seeing in Kenya is the weaponization of the justice system and the police department to silence critics of this regime. Okay, so what every dictator does in Africa, it's not anything new. We have seen various regimes trying to silence people using the instruments of power that are handed to them to better govern the citizenry. So it's nothing new. But what I want to say today, from my perspective, I want to speak to the leaders of this nation. And when I say leaders, it spans across even religious leaders, and especially to our religious leaders, because I've heard this talk of peace. People talking about we need to dialogue because peace is important for the nation. And yeah, peace is very important for our nation. We need to have a nation that is at peace, because peace provides an environment for the country to function, for businesses to function, for people to live a good life, for children to go to school. So peace is paramount. Very well said. But we have to notice something, or again, I usually say so that you can understand where I'm coming from. I am a Christian, and I heavily depend on the Bible to guide my day-to-day principles in how I live my life. That may not be the case for you, but in my Bible, it clearly says that our God is a God of justice and He's a God of peace. So when our leaders, especially the religious leaders, tell us about peace, and I've had this, I've gone to church for quite some time, and you hear them saying, let's pray for peace, pray for peace, pray for peace. You cannot have peace without justice. This is not a new thing. Even God is a God of justice. You cannot claim that you are fighting or demanding for peace, or you're advocating for peace, yet when it comes to the advocacy of justice against those who have faced injustices, you become hypocritical. Because why are the leaders of faith, when it comes to advocating for justice, why are they silent? Then you see the happenings in this country, especially Christian leaders. It's such a disappointment. You kind of understand this closeness that some leaders have with the clergy, and you when you dig deeper, you find that these people have entered into certain beneficial positions with government. They are benefiting from contracts. They are getting church land. They are getting money to build sanctuaries, which is not a bad thing in itself. You can donate to fund to build a church. It's God requires that of us if you're a Christian. But when it comes to someone's donation being used to blind you from seeing injustice so that you cannot speak up, then that donation is no longer a donation, that becomes a bribe. And if you've read Proverbs, I can't remember how that verse goes, but it talks about the bribe, or a bribe blinds your eye or something, or it makes you turn a blind eye to injustices or something of the sort. That's what's happening within Kenya. The religious leaders who are supposed to speak out or speak up for the vulnerable in society are benefiting from the same government that is performing these atrocities. So there's how they're benefiting. There are those who have been given positions, there are those who have been given salaries, there are those who are getting contracts, there are those who have been given cars, some are getting church land. So already this person, has given you money, and what you don't know is you have sold your soul, because your ability to be objective, is sold the moment you accept that thing, because it's a bribe. It may look like it's a donation, but it's a bribe. It is you receiving that church land, you receiving that vehicle, you receiving that contract, that salary. What you're trading is the silence. You're trading your voice. You're trading your voice. That's why you find that injustice is heavily prevalent in the country, and most of our leaders of faith are not speaking up. Why? Because they have already compromised. Because the church is supposed to be an arbitrator. The church is supposed to be the the moral compass of society that helps citizens live according to God's statutes, and it helps leaders to govern according to God's ways. So the church is a referee that helps the normal average citizen to live according to God's will, and is supposed to help leaders govern these people according to the will of God. Now, when the church or part of the leaders of faith are compromised, then they trade their voices for financial gain. You may call it how you want to call it. You may call it donation, you may call it church contribution, you name it how you want. But that's the reason why they cannot speak up. That's the reason why they watch as this government performs atrocities. No spiritual leader does not know that life is sacred. God abhors the loss of life. God detests. The Bible is very clear. You do not have a right to take life. That is basic 101 Bible lesson for any spiritual leader. That is, you learn this in, I think it's Exodus or Deuteronomy. I can't remember, when God was giving out. Life is precious. The only one who has the right to take away life is the one who gives it. So when you see young people are being killed, we had like 60 people dying in the first protest. We had like 40 or thereabouts dying in the second ones. We are having abductions. People being abducted from their houses for speaking up. The Bible is very clear on condemning abductions. God is clear. So when you see a society that we have people that we call spiritual leaders, and they are mum, they are silent when atrocities such as murder, kidnapping, abductions are being done by government. And then you wonder where they get the moral authority to demand for peace, yet they do not have the same responsibility when it comes to demanding for justice. So what they're doing is the government is doing this thing and then is now using the pulpit, okay? And these leaders are now being used to quell down your anger. So when you go to church, you'll probably hear them saying, now we need to pray for Kenya because there's so much instability. We need to pray for peace. We need to pray for our leaders so that, yes, nothing they're saying is wrong. The Bible actually, I'll focus more on the Bible in this episode because I'm talking to leaders of faith and I'm a Christian. So if I'm biased, you'll forgive me for this episode. But the reason why you're seeing all this is they have lost their conscience. They have lost that authority that God has given them. So they're being used to come and suppress down your quest for justice. So you'll hear them threatening you. Subtly, they'll not express it, but subtly they'll threaten and say, when the country is unstable, this and this will not happen. It's not good for the country. The Bible requires of us, or God requires us to pray for our leaders and to pray for peace. But He also clearly advocates for us to demand for justice and for leaders to be just. For God Himself is just. So this suppression that we are seeing from the leaders of faith, they just want, dialogue and talk, dialogue so that there is peace. Why in the first place is there this eruption? Why are there chaos in Kenya? Why are people going out to the streets? Why are people vocal? Why are people angry? It's because there is injustice being done to them. When people pay taxes and they don't see where the taxes go, when people cannot get covered by a healthcare that has gaps, intentionally dented to do so, when the funding model for universities being compromised with, when the CBC education system is not equalized so that children who are in Turkana can have an equal environment to partake of this curriculum with those that are in urban areas. So you have children learning a CBC competence-based curriculum or something, yet the facilities that they're using are not equal. Then you expect these children to do the same exam and pass. And yet we are seeing leaders buying choppers every day. This, the religious leaders cannot speak on. This, they are silent about. They are silent about corruption. They are silent about lavish spending. They are silent about Harambes or leaders or political leaders splashing money in public event. They are silent about that. They are silent about police killings. They are silent about abductions. And when they come to confront these, because once in a while they are convicted and they come out to speak upon this, it's so papered over that it has no effect. Then you wonder, what exactly is the role of our spiritual leaders? Because God expects these people to bring sanity into society. When I go and read about the prophets and those that were sent to advocate for justice, they were plainly frank with the political leaders. But what you're seeing now is a mockery of God. And therefore, for you to have peace, this is just now common sense. Let's go to common sense. You cannot have peace where there's no justice. The reason people are out in the streets is because they're demanding justice. Justice for those who have been killed. Justice for the way their resources has been mishandled. Justice for the problems or the difficulties that they have had to face based on their resources or their wealth being mishandled. So, unless our leaders of faith really look into themselves and find the courage to address justice, then they should stop flooding us with these messages of peace. Because most of them, not all, most of them are speaking with a full stomach. They have received gifts in kind. That's why they don't resonate with the common person on the ground. The mother who is hurting, the mother who is sick and cannot afford healthcare, the mother who has lost his son or her daughter, the parent who had their child abducted. So it's really saddening that we have a society that the people actually are, it's like they are on their own. The people who God has placed to intervene for those who are voiceless are dining with the oppressors. So the common man is left to advocate on his or her own. So the purpose of this video was for me to highlight one thing clearly. We want peace. We want a country that functions, that works for everybody, that our children can go to school and come back home. But we also want justice. We want corruption to end. We want good governance. We want police brutality to stop. We want abductions to stop. We want killings to stop. We want misappropriation of funds to stop. We want the government to be prudent in how it uses our taxes. So unless our leaders of faith can be vocal on these agitations the same way they're advocating for peace, then I don't think they have the moral authority to speak to a citizen or a citizenry who already feel abandoned. And okay, let me not go into that. But that's my parting shot for today. If you're going to stand up and advocate for peace and these handshakes that you want people to be shaking hands every time, then start implementing, start speaking out against the things that the normal person is advocating for. We're tired of handshakes. We are shaking hands every year. We are tired of shaking hands. You know, there's a verse in Ecclesiastes that says there is a time and a season for everything. So there is a time for shaking hands, and then there's a time for using your voice. So this is not the time for shaking hands. This is the time for using your voice to advocate for change. If you're not ready to use your voice, then stop telling people to shake hands. People shake hands only when they agree. When there's no agreement, then all this is a fallacy. That's my parting shot, and I think I will end it at that. So thank you, those who have taken your time to tune in. I really do appreciate you, and I pray that I will see you for my next episode. Do like, share, and subscribe this content to anyone who you think might benefit. And I'll see you for the next episode. So God bless you, and God bless Kenya. Cheers.